Perfect.
All right, everybody, what's going on? And welcome to another edition of SWAC Talk. This is the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC. See what's coming at you. And today, it's just going to be a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I like to call it news and notes. Got a couple of different subjects I want to touch on. Didn't want to do an individual show on them, so just throw them all together. Going to do these from time to time during the season. So we're going to talk about FAMU hiring James Colzie III as their head coach. We're going to talk about some FBS payouts for FCS games. And then we're going to talk a little bit of SWAC basketball, men's and women's. So that's got a pretty full slate. So, man, let's go ahead and buckle up and get down with it. Y'all make sure y'all hit those socials. There you can find all the articles that I write for bustingbrackets.com. So anytime an article drops, like the one I had dropped yesterday, you can hit my socials and get it there. Or you can go directly to the website, bustingbrackets.com, and check me out there. I got another one dropping soon, going to be my second edition of SWAC Power Rankings. And boy, are these things fun to put together because it's like a doggone merry-go-round, roller coaster, whatever you want to call it, every week. So stay locked in with that. Those socials are Facebook, SWACTalk, Instagram, SWACTalk, Twitter, SWACTalk76. Also, I'm still working on my all-time quarterbacks for each school. So if you follow any school, man, you can hit my email and give me some suggestions, or you can hit me on my socials. Email is swagtalk76@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, making our way up to 1,200 subs. So definitely thank y'all for that in advance. Like the video, share it, and feel free to comment your thoughts on any topic on the show or anything else. So let's go ahead and get into this, man. We're gonna start this thing off with the news that dropped a few days earlier than they said it would. FAMU hires James Colzie III as their 19th head football coach. I'm going to read a little bit from the press release, and then I'll kind of talk about who he is. It says, Tallahassee, Florida, Vice President and Director of Athletics, Tiffany Dawn Sykes, named James Colzie the 19th head football coach at Florida A&M University, January 27, 2024. I am thrilled to announce Coach James Colzie III as our new head football coach, said Sykes. I extend my deepest gratitude to President Larry Robinson, the FAMU Board of Trustees, Chairwoman Kristen Harper, and the entire FAMU community for their unwavering support throughout this process. Special thanks to Renaissance Search and Consulting for their pivotal role in leading the search for our 19th head football coach. I also appreciate Dr. Donald Palm and the dedicated search committee for their commitment to completing a swift yet thorough process. Coach Colzie, dedication as interim head coach and now as our permanent leader, exemplifies his commitment to excellence. I am eternally grateful to President Robinson and Vice President and Director of Intercollegiate Athletics, Tiffany Dawn Sykes, for their confidence in me, said Colzie. It is truly an honor to join names like William Bell, Jake Gaither, Rudy Hubbard, Billy Joe, and Willie Simmons to hold this illustrious title of head football coach at Florida A&M, and I am ready to do my part of carrying on the tradition of this storied university as the #1 public HBCU in the country. The 2023 Celebration Bowl champions have already started to work to duplicate last season's success. My job would be to surround these incredible young men with an outstanding coaching staff to ensure a great student-athlete experience while they are on the highest of seven hills, fangs up. So, I'm not gonna really dwell too much on the process. You know pretty much how that went. But you got the guy that that most people wanted. I will say this. This is like the third, third search that just went through all kind of, loopholes and twists and turns to basically come up with the guy that you could have probably had from the jump. Sometimes they make it a little bit tougher than it should be, and the end result is all that matters. So hiring a coach that is, well liked, was well wanted, and a guy that already knows the pulse of the team. I think that's great. I feel a lot of times, a new coach doesn't necessarily have to be a coach outside of what you built if you already got something stable. I wouldn't necessarily bring in a guy from a team who hasn't won anything, but a coach who has put in the work and grinded and worked his way up the ladder. He deserves to be rewarded for that. And it's not like he's a guy who just started coaching yesterday. So he's a guy with 20 with like almost 25 years of coaching experience under his belt. So he's not a newbie. He just this is his first time being a head coach, but he's put in the work and he's did some things here and there and make some things happen. So work your way up the ladder and you go from there. But gonna take a look at his Wikipedia page, which you can't always go 100%, but he was born on December 8th, 1974. That makes him 49 years old. So he's still young. He still can get out there and grind and mix it up and bond with recruits. So that definitely is a good factor there. He was born in Miami, Florida. His uncle Neil Colzie played in the NFL. He attended South Miami Senior High School, where he played football, basketball, and baseball under his father, James Colzie Jr., who was also the school's athletic director. Playing defensive back in football, he was a top player with 24 career interceptions and was named All-State, All-Dade County, and the Miami Herald Athlete of the Year as a senior. He also scored over 2,000 points in basketball as a point guard and hit 300 as a center fielder in baseball. Off the field, he was the only student of South Miami's advanced placement chemistry class to have an A average throughout his senior year, the number 2 ranked prospect in the country. He committed to play college football at Florida State. As a true freshman in '93, he appeared in 13 games for the Seminoles and helped them to a national championship. He was a backup in '94 and '95, recording 17 tackles and 2 interceptions in the latter year. However, his '95 season was derailed when he got into some trouble off the field, which we're not going to dwell on that. That happens. Guys get into it as a young guy. But he made education and staying out of trouble his priority and became a starter as a senior in '96. He had 34 tackles and 3 interceptions that year. In addition to football, he played a season of baseball in '94 at Florida State. He was an All-ACC selection in '96. He had a brief stint with the Buccaneers and played in minor league baseball system with the Expos. He began his coaching career with FIU in 2000, serving as coach, special teams coordinator, and cornerbacks coach. He remained in that position through the 2003 season, where he returned to Florida State as a GA from 04 to 06. In 2007, he went to Valdosta State as a special teams coach and defensive back coach. From 08 to 11, he was at West Georgia as associate head coach, defensive coordinator, special teams coach, and defensive back coach. 2012, he went to Southern Arkansas, where he also coached special teams. He was a recruiting coordinator and defensive backs coach there. 2013, he coached at Simon Fraser. He was the defense. He moved to Canada, and he was the defensive coordinator and defensive back coach for Simon Fraser. He then became a defensive coordinator, recruiting coordinator, and defensive back coach for Coffeyville Community College. That was in 2014, and then in 2015, he became a defensive coordinator, and defensive back coach for the UBC Thunderbirds, which is located in Canada, part of U Sports. He did that for a year. Then from 16 to 21, he worked at he was the head coach of St. Mary's, where he served as their head coach for 5 seasons. The 2020 season was canceled due to COVID. He compiled a record of 18-20, helping them reach the Atlantic University Sport Championship twice. He resigned prior to the 2022 season. In 22, he became defensive back coach at Florida A&M. 2023, he became associate head coach and defensive back coach. and now he is the head coach of Florida A&M. So he has, he has some head coaching experience, but that was, not in NCAA football. But still, he has 5 years of coaching experience under his belt. Like I said, he went 18-20. He had a 7-1 record and won his conference in 2018. Had a 5-3 record and finished second in 2017. So he has some success there. But he's a guy who has done it. He's got it. He's gotten it out the mud, and you can't do anything but be happy for a guy that has some adversity in his life, but worked through it and stayed the course. And now he's the head coach of FAMU, which he led that defense, which was probably one of the best defenses in the SWAC in quite some time. So he's familiar and he knows the team. The team knows him. The fans want him, and so it should be a good marriage. I mean, obviously, the rubber got to meet the road, but right now, a head coach hire is all about not all about, but the first, other than winning games, the first point of the head coaching search is to get somebody that is going to generate excitement in the fan base. And they took the long way around to get there, but I think they made the right decision. Could have had this nailed down a long time ago, but it is what it is. He's getting guys who had decommitted as portal guys to come back. So we'll see how that works out. And I think some things are gonna have to be some changes here and there. But I think he's gonna try to keep things as similar as possible so the train can keep rolling. So I think it's a good move. Like I said, I won't give it a grade, but I think it's a good move. And I like to promote from within if it makes sense. And this one makes sense. You already got a winning team. Don't rock the boat. So we'll see what he can do, and we'll keep our eyes out on the Rattlers. Signing day is next Wednesday, so we're gonna have some coverage on signing day. Not quite sure how I'm gonna do it because I may be at if Southern's having anything, I may be there. So it may just be covering on Thursday. But we will have some signing day coverage, so don't worry about that. Keep it locked in for that. The next thing we're going to talk about are some FCS versus FBS payouts. Sam Herder from Hero Sports, he released some FBS payouts that he was able to get. So far, they're going to update it as it goes. I'm gonna try to weed out the SWAC games as I go down the list. But basically, $700,000 is the highest amount. Colorado is paying North Dakota State $700,000 to come to Boulder to play them. FAMU is making $700,000 as well, going down to play the Hurricanes. So that's a nice payout for a trip that shouldn't take too much expenses. I mean, I know Tallahassee is a hike from Miami, but still, it's still in state, so you shouldn't have to spend too much money. But that's a nice payday right there. After that, you have to drop down. Alabama A&M is making $525,000 from Auburn. Again, an in-state game. Not a lot of travel there, so should be able to get not have to spend as much money on your expenses. Let's see as we make our way down this list. Jackson State is getting $350,000 from ULM. Of course, the Warhawks don't have a lot of money, so you can't expect a huge payout from that. But again, not a long trip, and maybe a possible dub. So you get the bang for your buck out of that one. Bethune-Cookman is getting $325,000 to go to Kalamazoo, Michigan, to take on Western Michigan Broncos. Again, that's a G5 team, so not a lot of bread there, but that's a long trip for lower level money. But they usually play 2 FBS games anyway, so they'll balance out like that. Thought I saw some more. Alabama State is getting $330,000 from UAB. Again, another in-state trip. not that far of a trek. So not a lot of expenses to be paid. And again, that's a G5 opponent. So you don't, you're not really looking for huge amounts of money there. But you always kind of want to see those those payouts increase, but teams only going to pay what they can pay, or are they only going to pay what they want to pay? And so you kind of have to, I don't want to say take what you get, but you kind of have to understand, the level of team that you're playing. It is not, the money may not always be the same. So um, I don't really have a huge problem with any of these. Like you're gonna see um, more of these numbers come out as we kind of trek further and further toward the season. But I think anybody that's looking for anything over 750,000 is probably gonna be disappointed. I think at one point they had a cap on that, so it's probably gonna stay at that realm. But you're just not gonna get a lot of that money like that. So is it always worth it? That's always the $100,000 question. Is it always worth it? Who can really say? Um, I'm not a fan of FBS games. I understand the methodology and the reason for it, but I'm never really a fan of it. So we'll just leave it at that. As more of those names come out, we'll talk about them as and kind of say what need to be said about those payouts. So man, we're gonna move on from now. It's time to talk a little bit of basketball, and we are smack dab in the SWAC play. I think this is what the the fifth weekend or the fourth weekend of SWAC basketball. So we making our way rapidly through the season. Um, we'll look at the schedule coming up for the men's side and the women's side, and we'll look at the standings, and we'll look at the players of the week, and then we'll be up out of here. The schedule this week: Grambling and Jackson State are playing in Newark, New Jersey, in Brick City. That's a 12 p.m. Central Time tip-off. Nice neutral site basketball game. Bethune-Cookman is at Alabama State. That's a 2:30 tip. Um, that game is on HBCU Go, so you can check that out. Southern is at Alcorn. That's a 3 o'clock tip. Uh, FAMU FAMU is at Alabama A&M, which is a 4 p.m. tip. Texas Southern is at Prairie View, which is a 5:30 tip, and Pine Bluff is at Valley, which is a 6 p.m. tip. So got a few big games on the schedule. That Jackson Grambling game is huge. Really, almost every game has some kind of early implications. Probably the only game that doesn't have any implications for in any higher seeds at this point, which is really, really early, is FAMU and Alabama A&M. But that's still a game that both teams need dubs. So it's still an important game. But Jackson State, Grambling is huge. Southern and Alcorn is huge for standings. Alabama State, Bethune-Cookman is an underrated game in terms of matchup and in terms of standings. And of course, Texas Southern and Prairie View, the Tigers are on a little run early, bouncing back from a kind of slow start. And Prairie View is always tough, so that should be an interesting game. And just for the sake of offensive basketball, you always try to watch Pine Bluff. So I think every game you can kind of point to something about it that makes it interesting. And like I said before, our power rankings will drop on bustingbrackets.com probably Thursday or Friday, so you can see those before you laugh at them when they crash and burn over the weekend. Our standings, we had a lot of changes this week. Southern is now tied with Alabama State and Grambling at 5-2. Grambling is basically in first because they beat Southern. Neither team has played Bama State yet, so there's no tiebreaker on that round. Southern is 11-9 overall. Bama State is 10-10, and Grambling is 9-12 overall. Texas Southern has jumped up to 5-3, so they're sitting by themselves. They kind of had a slow start, but they seem to be putting it together. They're 5-3, 7-12 overall. They've won 2 in a row. Southern has also won 2 in a row. Bethune-Cookman is 4-3. They're 9-11 overall. They've lost 1. Pine Bluff is 4-3, also 9-11. They've won 1. Jackson State is 4-3, 8-12 overall. They've lost 2. They had a rough trip through Florida, so they kind of had to kind of rebound. I know they kind of banged up, so we'll see if they can get themselves right for these next 2 very important games. Alcorn making a little move. They're 4-3. They've won 3 games in a row, so the Braves are heating up at the right time. Prairie View is 3-4. 3-4. They're 8-12 overall. Alcorn's 5-15. Prairie View is won 1 game I hate to say 1 in a row, but they won 1 game. FAMU is 2-5, 4-14 overall. They won 1. Alabama A&M has really hit the skids. They're 2-5 in conference, 3-17 overall, and they are on a 5-game losing streak. Quietly, I know a lot of people don't really keep tabs on the Bulldogs, but they have not really been able to get out of their own way. And they dropped from winning their first 2 games, both on the road, to losing every game since. So they have to find a way to get themselves right with these Florida teams coming to Huntsville. So they have to really get back right. Valley is 0-8 and 0-21. They are on a 21-game losing skid. After watching Valley in person, I think they're gonna steal a game from somebody at some point. They have some talent. They just don't have any depth. So they have to find a way to steal one. Can they do it somewhere? I think they can. Who knows when? It's going to probably be at home, but they're going to have to steal one at some point. The players of the SWAC Men's Weekly Honors, January 30th. The player of the week goes to TJ Madlock from Alabama State and Arkansas Pine Bluffs. Colin Milton is the SWAC Impact player of the week. Madlock averaged 23.5 points per game in the 2 games against Prairie View and Texas Southern. He had a career high 30 during Alabama State's win over Prairie View. He finished that game shooting 58% from the field, 10 of 17. He finished with shooting 76% from the line, and he had 5 rebounds while also dishing out 3 assists and 4 steals. The impact player of the week is Colin Milton. He had 23 points per game in his games against Southern and Grambling. He shot 57% from the field, and he also hit 75% of his threes. And he had a huge effort against Grambling to help the Golden Lions bounce back from a tough loss to pick up a big win on the road to kind of keep themselves in the mix. So Milton and Madlock, M&M, 2 guys who are very deadly for their respective teams, and they continue to impress, and both teams are going to be tough outs. So we'll see what kind of impact these 2 guys have in their games this week as we get ready for another round of SWAC play. So looking at our games coming up for Saturday on the women's side, Bethune-Cookman is at Alabama State. That's a 12 o'clock tip, HBCU Go. Southern is at Alcorn. That's a 1 p.m. tip. Florida A&M is at Alabama A&M. That's a 2 p.m. tip. Grambling is at Jackson State. That's a 3 p.m. tip. Pine Bluff is at Valley. That's a 4 p.m. tip. And Texas Southern is at Prairie View. That's a 5:30 p.m. tip. I forgot to go over the Monday games for the men's side, so we'll do it here on the women's side. Just remember, pretty much every men's game is 7:30 or 8 o'clock. Pine Bluff is at Prairie View. That's a makeup game because their game was canceled when they had that bad cold winter storm come through. So that game was canceled a few weeks ago. So it'll be played on Monday to make up for those games. So Pine Bluff plays at Valley, and then they go to Prairie View, men and women. The women tip off at 5. The men will tip off probably around 7:30. Bethune-Cookman is at Alabama A&M. That's a 5:30 tip. Men to follow. Grambling is at Alcorn. That's also a 5:30 tip. Men game follow that. FAMU is at Alabama State, 5:30 tip. And Southern is at Jackson State, also a 5:30 tip. Men's game to follow afterwards. Looking at the standings for the women's side, Jackson State is 2 games ahead of everybody. They're 7-0. 12-6 overall. They've won 7 games in a row. Grambling is 5-2, 11-7. Overall, they've lost 1. Pine Bluff is 5-2, 10-10 overall. They've won 2 in a row. Bethune-Cookman is 4-3, 13-7 overall. They won 1. Prairie View is 4-3, 8-9 overall. They've won 3 in a row. Southern is 4-3, 6-12 overall. They won 1. Alabama A&M is 3-4, 8-11 overall. They've lost 2 in a row. FAMU is 3-4, 4-14 overall. They've lost 1. Texas Southern is 3-5 in conference, 4-15 overall. They've lost 1. Alcorn is 2-5, 4-14 overall. They've lost 3 in a row. Bama State is 2-5, 2-16 overall. They won 1. And Valley is 1-7, 2-19 overall. They've lost 4 in a row. Last but not least, we're going to take a look at our SWAC weekly honors for the women's side of things. Those honors go to Ariana Grizzle from FAMU and Ryan Payne from Prairie View. The women's player of the week is Ariana Grizzle, and the impact player is Ryan Payne. Grizzle, this week, she had an impressive performance with 29 points against Jackson State to close out a week of competition. For the week, she averaged 23.5 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 3.5 steals, and 1 block during FAMU's games against Alcorn and Jackson State. Impact player, Payne averaged 22 points per game to go along with 4 assists per outing this past week. She also had 4 total steals and 1 block for the week while logging 37 minutes and 36 minutes respectively. So she played pretty much the whole game in both games against Alabama State and Alabama A&M. She had a season-high 27 points and 2 rebounds, 4 assists, and 1 steal, leading Prairie View to a come-from-behind victory over Alabama A&M. So salute to those 2 ladies as they have received our SWAC honors. We'll see how they do this week in upcoming action. They both have games on the docket. Prairie View has 1 game against TSU. Well, they have 2 games against TSU and Pine Bluff, and FAMU plays Alabama State and Alabama A&M this weekend. So we'll keep it locked there. Y'all make sure y'all keep it locked with us. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC, man. I'm signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.